teleSUR, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas. On Wednesday, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko announced that he will begin the legislation process to grant semi-autonomous status to the pro-Russian eastern regions of Ukraine. Pro-Russian rebels have demanded an even more autonomous federalized system. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned that the Ukrainian military may be amassing forces in eastern Ukraine. He says there are concerns of a concentration of heavy artillery in the region. He went on to call the move some type of, quote, attack force. Peace continues in Gaza with no new allegations of ceasefire violations from either side. teleSUR Gaza correspondent Noor Harazin reports how Gazans are adjusting following the end of the attacks.
There has been no violations reported in the Gaza Strip today, not from the Israeli side or from the Palestinian militant side. The good news today is that finally those employees who were working in the Hamas government in the Gaza Strip before the unity government, they are getting paid in the next few days after both Hamas and the PLO managed to solve the problem of sending the money to the Gaza Strip to these employees. There has been a very sensitive problem with these employees with the Israeli side and from the other Western countries, because they did not want this money to enter the Gaza Strip to be delivered to employees in such government and Hamas government, because they take this government as a terrorist organization and they don't believe in this government. However, somehow with the help with the PLO, these employees are getting paid in the next few days. Also today, an Egyptian official said that a conference for the reconstruction of Gaza will start in Egypt in October, and this is something good for the Palestinian people to hear, especially that there is hundreds of families are still without any shelter after their homes were destroyed during Israel's offensive on the Gaza Strip.
And thanks to Noor. Today, Cuba's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla, met his Vietnamese counterpart in Hanoi. The visit is aimed at boosting bilateral ties and discussing regional and global issues of cultural concern. Parrilla arrived in the country Tuesday evening, kicking off a 3-day official visit. Today, he attended a wreath-laying ceremony at the War Heroes Memorial in Hanoi. He is also scheduled to meet with Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Dung and General Secretary of the Communist Party, Nguyen Phu Trong. Vietnam exports rice, coal, chemicals, garments, and computers to Cuba and imports pharmaceuticals. Violent crime levels are decreasing in Venezuela. Investigating the causes of this decline, here's our Caracas correspondent, Rachel Boothroyd.
This week, the Venezuelan government announced significant reductions of violent crime rates across the country, with new figures demonstrating a 51% decrease in kidnapping and a 25% decline in cases of rape. In a continent infamous for its military dictatorships and for applying a heavy hand to the issue of crime, the socialist government of Venezuela has opted to try a different kind of model, which could be at the heart of these latest figures. The approach is based on a model known as community policing, which sees police recruits attending the new National Experimental University of Security, or UNES. Here, the recruits work alongside local communities in crime prevention initiatives, as well as receive education on the social and economic causes of crime.
Prisons produce more criminality, more crime, more repeat offending. They condemn people to exclusion. They stigmatize and they break up people's social networks.
The new experimental system was implemented in 2009 in response to persistent violent crime rates in the country, which refused to decline despite the implementation of numerous social programs aimed at tackling poverty.
Before, there was a lot of social injustice, a lot of impunity. Human beings were not valued. Marginalized sectors were extremely hard hit, extremely punished and repressed. They made students disappear. They killed them. And you didn't have the right to seek for justice because the same institution which was meant to protect you punished you as well.
Here in the working class district of Katia, where the headquarters of the UNES are based, many of the new recruits are carrying out community work in the nearby barrios or shanty towns. Their placements include attending communal council meetings, helping communities to rejuvenate public spaces and providing recreational activities for local youth. Vigdalia Sanchez is a communal council spokesperson who says that the new measures have totally transformed policing in the area.
Now with the community police, there is more respect. When they graduate, they're called opponents. But opponents carry out more community-oriented work with the communal councils. When they're studying, when they're in the academy, they send them to get involved with the communal councils, and there is a relationship between them and us. They also teach them about human rights and community relations. The communal councils keep them under a kind of surveillance.
Whilst there is still a long way to go in a country which has such a substantial history of police abuse and violent crime, the government cites the latest figures as proof that its people-centred police model is finally starting to bear fruit. I'm Rachel Boothroyd reporting for teleSUR from Caracas, Venezuela.
And thanks to Rachel. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Baghdad today for the beginning of a Mideast tour. He is touring the region to drum up support for the U.S. campaign in Iraq and Syria against the Islamic State, a Sunni extremist group which has taken over 1/3 of Iraq. Kerry says he supports the new Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi's plans to reconstitute the Iraqi military. Kerry also lended his support for Abadi's commitment to broad reforms aimed at including broad sectors of Iraqi society and the country's politics. Meanwhile, in southern Baghdad, a double-car bomb attack killed 10 people. Obama is scheduled to offer an additional address today to rally support for the campaign against the Islamic State. According to a source in the British Ministry of Defense, 3 military bases could be created in the Persian Gulf as a part of the U.S.-led fight against the Islamic State. Among the countries that are under consideration include the UAE, Oman, and Bahrain. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense says that the British military has maintained a constant presence in the Middle East since the 1980s and that British armed forces routinely exercise with members of the Gulf Cooperation Council. The spokesperson went on to add that the creation of these new bases would be a continuation of the UK's partnership with its allies in the Gulf. Until 2006, the old city of Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, was buried under trash and debris due to years of war and neglect. 8 years later, through Afghani hard work and the support of a British NGO, a new school, mosque, and hospital have been revitalized to serve the Old Town Kabul community. The Kabul Old City has been transformed into an artist center where people can learn the Afghani traditional arts such as calligraphy, woodwork, and ceramics. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For teleSUR English, I'm Cody Weddle. We have your latest stories and headlines again this evening.